Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel, and besides that also a new series. Well, I say new series, but for some people, it might not be new. This series might be quite familiar to some people because of the series that we had in the past on this channel. It's Formula SimRacing FSR. It's a new championship, a new year, 2020, and this is the first round at Malaysia. Now I say new series, or familiar perhaps for some, because there has been, I think, a 4-year break in between the old series that we had on our channel in 2016 and now the new series on the channel in 2020. Of course, some things have changed, some things have not. There are some new drivers, there are some drivers that were there in the past as well. Some people might know it. After 2016 we became the world champion in Formula SimRacing, and after that it was basically a bit more silent and I did some other stuff in life. But we're now finally back in 2020. Then I did some other stuff in the past on R Factor 2, such as GPVWC, which is quite a big league as well. I'm not gonna go into the discussion which is better and which is not, but it is also quite a big series. But I was on the verge of making a series for that as well, and then I was like, I don't think I can get a lot of or a high entertainment factor out of this. So let's see what we can do with FSR 2020. Any feedback, of course, on the video is always welcome. I'm still trying to find some new ways to make this series a little bit more modern compared to the 2016 series. In the 2016 series we also had graphics, stuff like that, but as you can see right now on the bottom left, there's already a graphic that looks a lot more modernized than the graphics that we saw in the 2016. So feedback on that kind of stuff is always welcome. We're currently in qualifying, of course, and I'm not gonna give a whole story about what has happened in the meantime. I'm just gonna focus solely on this 2020 season in FSR, and the whole story around it will be unfolding, I'm sure, as the rounds pass by. Starting qualifying here, we were not really in a good position at the start of this lap. You get 3 attempts for a hot lap in FSR, and you need to do that within I think something like 12 or 15 minutes time. So that 12 to 15 minute window is plenty of time to get 3 hot laps in. This was my final hot lap, I remember. Starting the lap, I think we were down in something like P4 or P5, so not necessarily all that good, but at the moment already 2 green sectors, very good. Roughly 3 tenths up so far, and I knew that there was a lot more time in this final sector, especially in the final corner, because I messed that up previously. We're currently actually in P5 starting then the qualifying lap, so of course we want to be a bit higher up. We did a 127.1, but we ultimately want to be in the 126s, preferably the mid 26s, even though that is quite hard coming down the final corner then. And this should be another green sector and an improvement in position, and yes, it is indeed. And in fact, 4.5 tenths up puts us up in provisional pole position with a 126.7. But I say provisional pole position because even though the Finnish flag was waving at that moment in time, Journey Simoncic, a familiar name, popped us and took a pole position for the first round. But all in all, a pretty good qualifying session. As I said, I didn't really want to go into a lot of stories around the race. What I can tell is we see the qualifying results right here. There's Simoncic 126.5. That's a familiar name from 2016. Hoyer is a familiar name. Sadley is a familiar name. Briljak is a familiar name. But also some new names in there, such as I think Jan Woznica, who was in P4, and actually not necessarily a teammate of us, but someone who was driving in the sister team, I believe. The team I'm driving for is HM Engineering. They are also, I think, a bit of a familiar name in iRacing. And speaking of iRacing, that was definitely a competition that I did in the meantime. And when I say meantime, I mean the transition period really from 2016 to where we are now in FSR 2020. Like I said, I did some GPVWC, also a lot of iRacing. Quite recently, actually a few months ago, we became champion in LMP2 class of SCO, which is called the Sports Car Open Championship. Quite a big series, if I'm not mistaken, and we became champion in that series, which is an endurance championship, P1 in LMP2. So that's pretty good. So, you know, quite diverse, a bit of iRacing, a bit of R Factor 2, and even, of course, F1 2019, which was the main series, so to say, on this channel. That is going to change. So the people who have watched the F1 titles before on this channel, those series, they will be like, what the, you know, F is this? But this is R Factor 2, you know, this is really where my passion lies, altogether with iRacing. It is, of course, in my opinion, a lot more realistic than an F1 title game by Codemasters. It is therefore also a lot more fun. Yes, I did focus on those F1 titles in the past 3 years or so, but did I get a lot of fun out of that? No, not really. So this is a lot more fun, but at the same time, it's not gonna be like we saw in 2016. You know, that kind of mindset, really, I should call it. That competitive mindset is not there anymore. I can already tell you that. I'm here solely for the fun. Didn't put a lot of practice in at all for these rounds. So, you know, let's just get going. And actually, I was already surprised to be at the top in qualifying. And this might be an interesting story, but I think I'll come back later to it at the end of this video, because after this race, I talk about competitive mindset and not having it at all coming into this race, and then after the race I was like, okay, this might get interesting, and then it triggers again some kind of competitive mindset. So that's quite interesting, but for now, like I said, let's not focus too much on the stories around it. The first round of the season is about to get underway. Lap 1 out of 56. We've got the red lights, they're on and they're out right now, and the first round is then underway. Journey SimRacing starting from pole position. Mitchie Hoyer already on alongside us on the left, then Journey defending, of course, the inside for the first turn as we're heading 3 wide then into the first turn. This is gonna get pretty exciting. Heavy fuel loads, of course, cold brakes probably coming into the first turn, so we need to be careful of that. And Mitchie Hoyer making a bit of contact there with his teammate, but so far so good. Everyone through the first corner safely, and that is pretty good. What is not so good, of course, is that we have dropped the position, but okay, you know, it can happen. In the formation lap we also saw the strategy, by the way, I should have pointed it out. It's a 2-stop strategy for this race, spinning in lap 13 and then once again in lap 34, doing soft, medium, medium. That's the strategy. That is our A game, and so far, of course, we're being dropped down into P3, so not ideally there off the start. We actually did get a pretty good initial launch, and that's what I remember, but then after that we bogged down a little bit, and Mitchie getting alongside us nicely. I knew, by the way, that Mitchie was going to be aggressive into turn 1, because of course Journey and Mitchie, they are both driving for Burst Esports, and you know, they will be let me put my thoughts really that I had going into this race. Let's put them forward. I think there is no doubt at all that Journey is the main driver in those Burst Esports teams. You see Journey now leading and Mitchie in 2, and you might probably be thinking like, wait, they have different liveries, right? Yes, they do, but they're technically the same team. Just like I talked about Jan Wosnika being an assistant team of HM Engineering, which is the team we're currently driving for. Burst Esports also, I think, has some kind of structure like that, so they're basically the same team, and therefore I think Journey is their main guy, you know, in that team. And if they could get Mitchie, of course, in P2, then that would create a buffer between Journey and the rest of the field. That is what I thought what was going on. Not really a lot of interesting stuff happened in the first 7 laps or so. We're currently then in lap 7. In the meantime, Mitchie actually overtook Journey, but you know, nothing too spectacular. New graphics, by the way. Look at that on the on the bottom of your screen. Some work went into these, so like I said, if you have some feedback on this, that would be nice. What we noticed, by the way, oh, also one thing I should point out, in 2016 we obviously had team radio as well. There was no team radio available for this race. We simply forgot to record it, and back in 2016, of course, we had Justin Sutton as our engineer, which honestly worked beautifully, and some very good memories of that period of time. But for this round, of course, there's a new team, so different engineer as well. I didn't ask Justin or anything. We just have a new engineer, which happens to be for this race Hardy Hammett, who's team manager, if I'm not mistaken, for HM Engineering. So we'll try to sort something out and have team radio then available for the next race, because honestly it does add a little bit more of a dimension to these videos, which is quite nice. But for this round we don't have it. I'll try to get it sorted for the next one, because that would be good. But what I remember Hardy, so that's the new engineer, saying at this moment, it really looked like a bit they were doing a fast lap, then a little bit more of a slower lap, then again a fast lap, a bit slower and fast, and you know, that sequence of lap times basically kept going for the first 13 laps or so. We'll skip a little bit further to lap 13. This is quite crucial because, as I said, lap 13 is our pit window. And in the meantime, Journey overtook Hoyer again, which I think happened in lap 11 or 12. And Journey, you can see visually, just pulled already quite a bit of a gap to Michi. Michi doesn't even have DRS anymore, so we're gonna try to attack Michi here. But in the meantime, he actually goes into the pit lane, and we decide to stay out a lap longer. And this was actually a good call, in my opinion. Like I said, lap 13 was our A plan. There you can see it on the left of the screen, and then we would be switching to the medium tire for 21 laps. But now we're actually gonna play it a little bit more safe. The tire strategy that we've got is not extremely risky, but extremely conservative. As in conservative driving. It is pretty aggressive if you look purely at the compounds. Because I can tell you, Michi has actually gone on the hard tire at the moment. So in terms of compounds, it is quite aggressive going for the medium instead of the hards. But if you want to make the mediums work, you need to drive extremely conservatively. And what I remember from these first 14 laps, I also said it on the team radio. I need to be honest, Burst Esports, so Journey and Michi, they both had better raw speed than we had. I could feel that. But the only reason that I'm sticking with these guys is DRS. If I did not have DRS, then I would be losing, I think, 3 tenths per lap. I'm not even kidding. So I knew after this first stint, okay, this is going to be pretty tricky to challenge for the lead. Because we're battling against 2 guys that are from the same team. First of all, as I think Janice Jordan is right now behind us in P4. We're battling 2 guys from the same team. And besides that, I could feel that they also had better pace. So we're gonna respond this lap. Then lap 14, the tires were pretty much shredded at this moment in time. So we're gonna come into the pit lane, and we did some good business in the first stint. Really, we stuck with the top 2, and besides that, we extended the first stint by a lap, which was not easy at all. But in the end, we did it. And I'm gonna tell you already what happens when you hit some kind of cliff on these tires. With benefit of hindsight, I didn't notice coming into this race because we didn't practice all that much. Hang on. Coming out of the pit exit, there was Michi Hoyer actually behind us. So how the hell have we done that? I'm not entirely sure. We've just overcut Michi Hoyer on some pretty worn soft tires. And we made the overcut work on him when he was on fresh hards. Now that is quite interesting. I did not expect to see that at all. But suddenly I thought, okay, if I have a good outlap here, we might also be able to jump Journey and then be in the lead of the race, which of course would be very good for us. What I was gonna say though, with the way these tires work, and I only know this because of hindsight, you know, I knew this after the race, I didn't know this coming into this race. Our setup is really designed that the rears go first. And honestly, this is something that we learned from after this race. You're better off making a setup where the fronts were quite a bit faster than the rears, because the front tires, their cliff, so to say, the point at which they really drop off, is a lot later than the rear tires. If the rear tires drop, you have a problem. You're gonna be sliding all over the place. If the front tires drop or go off the cliff, you know, you are a bit slower, but it is somewhat manageable. So that's something that we learned after this race, as we're trying to not mess around here and immediately go for the move here, which we did successfully. Like I said, there's no time to waste, and I can tell you that Journey is right now in the pit lane. There he was. You could briefly see him just exiting the pit lane right there, and indeed, like I said, we're gonna be in the lead of this race, at least a net lead into this race. Because there are still some people around us that are yet to pit. Journey is right now behind the driver who is still having to pit. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of that driver. This is also a bit new, of course. We're still having to adjust to the names of the people that are in this field. Journey seemingly getting by. Yes, he got by, so that's good for him. But interestingly enough, Journey is also on the hard tire, and this brought up quite a bit of confusion. I remember, between my engineer and myself. We were not sure what their strategy was going to be like. And honestly, what I thought they were going to do was extend this hard stint, of course, which makes sense because they're on the hard stint and we're on the medium. So they'll be going longer in this stint, and then I was thinking they would be going for the soft tires again at the end. So let's say the soft tires can do 16 laps in the final stint. That would mean they will be pitting in lap 40. That means they have still got something like 35-ish, 34 laps to go on a set of hard tires. That is a long stretch. I don't know whether they can do it, because I don't know what the hard tires are like. I didn't test them at all. I was like, okay, soft and mediums, they feel pretty good, so let's go for it. And that was really it. So opening up lap 70, then Simocic again going by. I think this must be Thomas Sedderly, who's in the Go Speed car. Might be mistaken, but here we go. Simocic indeed getting by. So this is quite interesting what we're gonna see here. Us driving right now really conservatively on medium tires, and I'm sure that Simocic and Hoyer, they can drive a lot more aggressive on their hard tires, because you know those hard tires don't wear as fast. The question is driving conservatively on mediums, is it slower or faster than pushing on the hard tires? That's the question. And initially it looked like the mediums were the right call. We took something like we put something like a 2.5 second lead to Simocic, and I was like, okay, let's try to manage this. But then in lap 32, as our tires obviously dropped, those hard tires only became faster and faster and faster and faster. And I didn't realize it at the time because I didn't test those hard tires at all. I was like, okay, this is not an option for us. Let's do a two-stop with soft and medium. But I tested it also after the race, and I can honestly tell you that with benefit of hindsight, going on the set of hards would be better. It is faster to push on the hard tire than to drive really conservatively on those medium tires. That is what I found. It is not, of course, at the beginning of the stint, but I think the crossover point is already around lap 5 or 6 or 5 or 6 laps after those on those tires, I should say. So we're already past the halfway mark of the race, and I can remember driving in this position. I was like, what is going on? I didn't have any kind of expectations coming into this race. I was hoping to have some fun as we're blocking off Journey right there. So he's trying to make a pass for the lead. He's going to be trying to go around the outside of turn 1, but we have that line covered. So far so good. Lap 33 of the race, and Journey opens up the fight then with 23 laps to go. But like I said, I had no expectations coming into this race. I really thought we would be... I'm gonna be purely honest, no lies. I was like, okay, if we can get a top 10, that would be pretty nice. I was hoping for some kind of build-up, where in the season you always see a bit of a build-up. At least that's what I like to see. First race you are a little bit, sloppy, and you make some mistakes, and then as the season of course progresses, you start to pick up a vibe, a flow, and you become better. Basically, you improve yourself. That's what I was hoping to see, but being already in the lead right now of the race and actually fighting with Journey Simocic then together for the lead of the race is already something that I did not expect at all. We're side by side into turn 1, coming to turn 2, the inside line being really squeezed there, but fair enough, Journey making the move and getting into the lead of this race then. And I remember at this moment in time I was really struggling with those rear tires, and you can see it right here, I think. Yep, you can see it, just the differences in traction. They are absolutely huge. A little bit of a replay of that move. Really, really tight here on the apex, but I think there was a bit of contact even, but nothing out of the ordinary. Of course, nothing that was illegal or those kind of or that kind of silly stuff. So all good move by Journey. Really squeezing us, of course, on the apex, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, after we quit in 2016 from FSR, I believe Broják once became champion. I think Michele D'Alessandro became champion, and last year Journey became champion finally. So he is right now the reigning world champion, of course, in 2020, and I think he has got a very good shot at once again going, of course, for the world championship. As we're coming to the pit lane then, lap 34 of the race. This is pretty much scheduled. We're gonna do another, 22 laps I think now on the medium tire. We're a little bit earlier than scheduled, but I need to be honest. We were driving a bit too aggressive. Hoyer, by the way, also went to the pit lane, and he is going for another set of hard tires. Really interesting. You know, we're basically doing 2 sets of mediums, and it seems like Mitchie is doing 2 sets of hards. And if Journey responds this lap, then I expect him to do the same. So very interesting, of course. But you can see as well on our in lap how much Journey pulled a gap once he passed us. It is, you know, extraordinary. And you know, those rear tires, they really went off, and you could see it also in the traction zone that I said at the exit of, what is it, turn 4, 5, 6, I don't know even. So lap 41 then, and interestingly enough, Journey only pitted right now, so he pitted in lap 40 and is on the medium tire, so he's gonna go with a different strategy than his teammate Mitchie Hoyer, which is quite interesting. But he will have, what is it, 6 laps or so fresher tires than us on those medium tires. We're still leading this race with 15 laps to go, but I knew that I was a bit on the back foot compared to all of these guys. Mitchie, of course, is on the hards. He'll most likely be attacking us at the end of the stint. Behind him is Peter Briljak, who is also on mediums if I'm not mistaken, and then behind him is Journey, also on the first set of mediums. And honestly, we did not have the pace at all. I already said it after that first stint. I could feel that we lacked raw speed, and the fact that we're right now leading this race, in my opinion, it's a bit of a miracle, as Peter Briljak actually spins. Peter Briljak spins in lap 41 of the race. That is remarkable. Maybe something to do with the dirty air, bit of, you know, a bit too keen on the power there, and then spinning his car around. So that is one opponent that was really close to us, that could challenge us, who is now out of this battle with 15 laps to go. And so we are the only driver right now that could possibly fend off one of these Burst Esport drivers to a victory, which is, like I said, I don't know how I got in this position. I honestly don't think we should have been in this position. We don't deserve it. We don't have the raw pace after that first stint. Like I said, we were only there because of the DRS. If we were in clean air, I would be 3 tenths laps slower. That is something that I knew for sure. I think that overcut that we did coming into the second stint, the overcut on Hoyer and the undercut on Journey that put us in the lead, that's pretty much has been decisive for the position that we're currently in, as Hoyer then goes for the lead of the race in lap 44. Of course, want to try to battle that as much as possible. There are 12 laps to go. Like I said, this is gonna have to be there's gonna have to be some kind of miracle, excuse me, if we want to still win this race. I don't think it's gonna happen, but we'll see what happens. We're gonna give it our best shot, as Mitchie once again goes for a move but can't make it stick for the time being. But look at Journey as well. I knew that I was remarkably slow. I just knew it at this point in the race. So how we're gonna fend off these guys, I'm not entirely sure, because they're extremely fast. First of all, Mitchie, of course. Mitchie will be faster and faster due to the tire deficit. And Journey, he is still on those medium tires that are 6 laps fresh or something like that compared to us. So what else do you expect, of course? But really, this could be a classic race with the way that it's shaping up right now. I don't know how, for how much longer we're able to keep this up, but I could feel that our pace was just, you know, not good at all. I mean, the first stint was kind of alright, the start of the second stint was kind of alright as well, but then you hit that point where the mediums slowly start to go, and when they start going, you slide more, so there's a higher chance that those tires are gonna overheat as well. So if you are already driving at 85% of what you can do at the start of the stint, and those tires start to go, you're gonna be driving at another 5 to 10% less, so like 80 or 75% of your driving, because, you know, if you don't do that, you're gonna overheat those tires, they will be even more destroyed, and there's no way you're gonna get towards the end of the race of your stint, and you need to do, you know, some kind of compromise strategy. So lap 46 of the race, and Hoyer's gonna try to go for a move again. We're gonna have to try to defend this then, really squeezing him there on the inside, but not enough. He's able to go through the inside, and then we'll have the inside line for turn 2, of course, quite close to each other. But it seems like Hoyer's got the advantage, he has got the traction as well. So for now, we need to stick with P2. But of course, we have still got another shot into the next corner. We need to brake very late, which we do indeed from the outside then. But Hoyer's got the inside line covered, so very well done by him. And then there's Journey already on the inside of us through this long left-hander. A bit of a nudge that pushes us wide. And Journey actually going through. So we're losing 2 positions in the space of not even 2 sectors. Some good driving of course from Mitchie first, and then also from Journey. But also, I was honestly at the time a bit frustrated with the way that went, with the nudge that happened. So we're gonna just send it into this hairpin. And can we make that move stick? Yes, we can. We're forcing him a bit wider on the exit, but able to make the move stick. Pretty aggressive driving, wasn't it? Perhaps a little bit out of the rule book. I'm not sure yet. We'll have a look at the replay, of course, very soon. But with 10 more laps to go, we are back in P2. But I am not sure whether we can still, of course, challenge Mitchie for the lead of the race now. He is outside of our DRS window, and we have got our hands full on defending from Journey, of course. So in lap 46 then it all unfolded with that move from Hoyer at the start of the lap, and then later of course Journey sneaking through, us leaving the door wide open, not expecting that he would have such a good run on the exit of the corner, but he did, and now again he's gonna go for a move. This is some fascinating stuff, and there is contact actually between us. There is contact in turn 1. Journey half spins round, but is able to keep on going for the time being. But what a battle there, so much unfolding there within the space of just a few laps really. And here we are having a look once again at that replay then. So it already unfolded, of course, with Mitchie, everything going well there into turn 1, unlike with his teammate, of course, into turn 1. Here we're seeing it from above. Pretty good racing, of course. Great move from Mitchie, applying a lot of throttle here in between the corners right there, just trying to stay ahead of him, but couldn't do it. So pretty fair and square move, of course, by Mitchie. Very well done. Trying to get back at him, of course, but couldn't do it. And then, of course, we are seeing it right here around the outside, but couldn't do it. And then, of course, Journey following a little bit later right here. I remember at the time there was a little bit of a nudge right here, which kind of annoyed me, but you know, looking at the replay, nothing serious happened, you know, but it felt like a pretty serious nudge to me. But there was absolutely nothing that Journey could do, because he was, as you can see it here, already on the curb even. There is that nudge that I was talking about, which was more or less my fault because I turned in. I thought that there was more room. You know, from our perspective it looks like a little bit of a nudge, but I don't know why. Because from Journey's perspective, you know, he was pretty much stuck on the or sticked he was stick to the apex. So there was not a lot that he could have done differently. And then of course the dive bomb right here. I mean, it is from extremely far behind, and I noticed during the entire race already that I was able to brake a lot later really than the guys around me. Here we are seeing it from Journey's point of view. I completely ran it out wide, and I think that we were pretty well, not lucky, but if Journey was still like properly alongside and I did that, then it would have been a no-brainer. That, you know, would have been too harsh. But what we saw right now was that, as we see here, I think this is more or less racing incident. There was still more room for Journey on the inside, and there was still more room that I could have given as well, perhaps. But you know, there was not a lot that I think we both did wrong. Coming back to that dive bomb though, I think one thing that speaks a little bit in our favor. First of all, it is a very aggressive move, of course. I think it was right on the limit. Like I said, if Journey was still like really properly alongside and I would have done that, then, you know, no brainer, that is too harsh. But what we saw right now was that Journey was still somewhat alongside us with his front wheel, but perhaps not alongside us enough to really, you know, point the finger to me, in my opinion, and say, you know, that was a ridiculous move. And here we see it again. The battle still keeps on going. Lap 51 of the race. Journey now has the inside line for turn 2. And look at that. We are once again side by side. And he has the better traction on those relatively fresh medium tires. But we're not going to give up, of course. Once again, we're going to go around the outside right here. We already tried this with Mitchie. Couldn't do it that time. We're still side by side. What a battle we are seeing here for P2. This time the roles have reversed. We are on the inside line now of this long left-hander. But Journey sticking it around the outside there. What a brilliant move from Journey. What a brilliant battle as well. And now I knew, well, there's not a lot that I can do now. I can still try to dive bomb from this far behind into the hairpin. But of course, that was already too far behind. So, man, oh man, lots of battling that we are seeing, of course, in the last couple of laps. Already an incident that we saw with Journey into turn 1, and then of course that dive bomb. Let me know what you think of that dive bomb, by the way. I think I can understand people when they say you know, that was maybe a bit too aggressive. I think that I could understand what people are saying there. At the same time, though, it's a do or die move. You know, if you don't do it, then Journey goes away, and you never see him again. Basically, that's what I was feeling like at the moment. And I knew already, of course, when Journey passed me in lap 51, there was not a lot that we can do. You know, don't look forward. I think we would rather have to look backwards, because the tires, they were in pretty critical condition as well. I couldn't do a lot anymore on those tires. And when I saw Jim Paresis flying by on his set of soft tires, I was like, okay, what is the point in defending from him? What I was hoping is let him go by and then hopefully see a massive battle for the lead of the race, because honestly Jim is still right now, of course, on the soft tire. I did expect him at the time being to challenge for the victory, for the win. And we are also seeing Peter Briljak. Remember, Peter actually spun round and still caught up to us. That shows what kind of pace he has got, and that also shows the lack of pace that we have, which is exactly what I was feeling throughout the entire race. I really felt like we did not have the absolute pace, the raw speed wasn't there, and it goes to show here with Peter Briljak also going for a move right there, but we got that inside line covered, so blocked him off. Once again, quite aggressively, to be honest, but you know, I was trying to explore the limits here, and I think I'm pretty much near those limits. Maybe with some moves over the limit. Once again, let me know if you think that that is the case. That would be quite interesting to hear your opinions on that as well. And then we skip to lap 55, the final corner. And funnily enough, no, actually it's not this lap, it's the next lap, so forget about that. Let's see what we can do here, right? We're in P4. This is the battle for P4 with Briljak, who is of course in P5. Let's try to defend, of course, again as hard as... And again, we are seeing right there that we are able to break it a bit later. But this is exactly what I mean with the rear tires giving up. You saw us sliding pretty much into the first corner, even making contact with Briljak. So that's not all that nice. Can Briljak go for another move? He probably can. Don't forget also that our rear tires at this point are at the critical point. Briljak will have much better exits, just like you saw there. But that time I covered the inside, and look at that. The differences in grip are really visual. Like I said, those medium tires, they were in critical condition, and the first part of the car, of the first tires that went, so to say, were the rear tires, like I said. So, you know, once I hit that point, it was the rears, there we go, that gave up. You could see it there with the slide. The rear tires basically gave up, and honestly it's harder to control the rears when they are worn than the fronts, but I already explained that over the course of this video. So then, a rookie mistake, lap 55 of the race, first rookie mistake, the mistake that we made coming into this final corner. There was no grip anymore on the rear tires, but I thought at this point that this was the finish flag, so I was like, okay, you can go through and that's it. But then I of course noticed right now, hang on, it's now the final lap of the race, whereas I thought the previous lap was the final lap of the race. Extremely rookie mistake. I even made this mistake in my first ever race in FSR back in 2014. I already thought that the finish flag had fallen. Well, it wasn't, and there was still one more lap to go. The exact same thing happened there. Ultimately a rookie mistake, and it ultimately means as well that we have lost a place as well. I wasn't going to be all that, you know, sad about it or whatever. Again, you can see just braking pretty late there. I wasn't all that sad about it or whatever. In my opinion, this is our deserved position. If you purely look at our raw speed, and there's smoke actually in the background, there's a smoke in the slow car as well. It is Jim Paresis who was on the soft tires and has blown up his engine on the final lap of the race, the final sector as well. And well, you can see here just pushing very hard, trying to overtake Peter Briljak. In the background, by the way, there are two cars going side by side into the final corner. Those are the two burst cars trying to go for a little bit of a do or die move on the final corner. But of course, Peter Briljak being wise enough to cover that off. We will be finishing in the 4th place, what has been a thrilling first round of the season. And in the end, Mitchie Hoyer took the win ahead of his teammate Journey SimRacing, something which I did absolutely not expect. I said it in the video as well. My thoughts were, I thought they were going to sacrifice Mitchie a little bit in favor of Journey. That's honestly what I was expecting. You know, nothing judgmental about that. It was seriously what I was thinking Burst was gonna do, because Journey, in my opinion, is their main man. But in the end, Mitchie got it. So that is an even bigger compliment worth, of course, to him. Well done to Mitchie. It's also his first win in the World Championship, so well done to him. In the end, finishing in P4 with the DNF of Jim Paris. Honestly, not the position, in my opinion, that we should have finished. I do believe, though, like I said before, we took the wrong strategy. After the race, I also tested the hards, and they indeed were, in fact, better. So, you know, driving with the mediums, you had to drive really conservatively, and it really showed. We were not in a position, though, to drive conservatively, because the position we were in, you know, if you are in such a position, it is very hard actually to drive conservatively, because, you know, you're fighting for the win and you're like, I need to, you know, push that little extra to try to go for the win. And in the end, when you do that, then the closing laps, they become harder and harder, and that's exactly what happened. So we were absolutely nothing in the last, well, I would even say 10 to 8 laps of the race, and then of course the last 2 or 3 laps it was even worse. So P4 in the end. Congrats to Mitchie once again. Interesting race for sure, and definitely a race that planted some kind of seed once again for a competitive mindset. You know, I approached this race being like, you know, let's see what happens. I'll be happy if I get a top 10. But then driving and in front of the field, and even for some laps leading the race, has triggered a little bit of a mindset again. That's the seed that I was talking about. So let's see what we can do. Let's see whether we can learn from this race and try to do something different in Imola, which is the next round 2, and see what we can do there. I think the video has said enough, so I don't need a lot more words to, you know, to explain the situation of the race. You know, next race will be back. So thanks all for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, I would sincerely appreciate a like. Maybe it was a little bit nostalgic for some, you know, maybe it reminded them of the highlights from yeah, back in 2016. If you have any kind of constructive criticism, feedback, whatever, let me know, and I'll try to look into those. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of the season, and we'll be back next time as well. Next race is coming this Sunday on the Formula SimRacing YouTube channel, so if you want to see it live, then, you know, head there and be part of it. Thanks all for watching, take care of yourselves again, and see you later. Goodbye.